Hey everyone, so I bought an iMac 5K in September of 2017, and it replaced my 2011 Mac Mini, which has served me exceptionally well. Now, one full year later, I think I'm ready to review it. So let's go. So how did I conclude that the iMac would be my next computer? Well, my Mac Mini had recently died, and I needed a replacement immediately. And at the time, the Mac Mini was a pushover and a severe downgrade from my 2011 Mac Mini. And I certainly didn't want a laptop as my main machine. And the Mac Pro was too old, so the iMac was my only option. In terms of the design, the iMac is beautiful. The aluminum frame is solid and it looks exceptionally high-end. Even though the display does have rather large bezels, they really don't bother me. The display is rather slim, although not useful. It really adds to the aesthetics of the machine. It's a really well-designed machine that is truly the best all-in-one that money can buy. I'm sure that Apple at some point in the future will make an iMac with small bezels. But does it really matter? Personally, I don't think so. In terms of the display, this display will spoil you. Every other display will be inferior. Computer monitors will never look the same again. A full 5K monitor with excellent viewing angles is such a marvel. It creates an environment for video editors that was only a dream a few years ago. Now you can edit while having the viewer be native 4K. And it does wonders for text and anything that's being displayed. The display is very bright, although overall, the actual display is glossy. And it does have some matte properties that make viewing the display under very bright conditions very tolerable. Seriously, the best part of this iMac is by far the incredibly dense 5K display. If the system detects a very bright environment, it can actually unlock an even higher threshold. Currently, the iMac is rated at 500 nits, which is more than enough for most environments. In terms of inputs, we have the headphone jack, SD card, 4 USB 3.0s, and 2 USB Type-Cs, and Gigabit Ethernet. For the USB Type-C connections, you can actually connect one extra 5K monitor or two 4K monitors. Or potentially, you can use one of those USB Type-C connections for an external GPU. So those USB Type-C connections provide expandability for the future. Currently, I'm not using any Type-C connections, but I will eventually. More than likely, they will be used for external storage, maybe a RAID of some kind. For my Mac Mini setup, I was using the JBL Pebbles 2.0 as external speakers, and I figured I would keep them with my new iMac. But that quickly changed as the speakers on the iMac are actually better. They are so good that I found zero need to get something external. I'd rather keep my setup simple than introduce external speakers that produce a minor upgrade. The iMac speakers get very loud and don't distort at high volumes. I don't think I need anything more, and most people probably won't either. The performance of this iMac is well balanced. A strong processor paired with a strong GPU. Specs are as follows. i7, 4.2 GHz, 24 gigs of RAM. The GPU is an RX 580 with 8 GB. Storage is rated at 512. I went with 512 GB because I wanted to have a rather large canvas for editing. Literally, all the storage on this machine is used for working on videos and a few applications that are installed on it, and nothing else. Everything else is stored on external drives. For the RAM, I opted for 24 gigs. I bought the machine with 8 GB originally, and I added 16 gigs via a third-party reseller. I do, however, want to add another 16 very soon, and my machine will sit at 40 gigs. And that will be awesome for heavy multitasking, and the more RAM, the better, because Final Cut Pro 10 will eat all of the RAM it can. And would you believe that this iMac is now the last remaining Mac that has a user upgradable RAM? Sure, the new Mac Mini does too, but it takes far more effort. However, this here is straightforward, simple, and I hope Apple keeps it that way. It was very important for me to have plenty of internal storage, because my YouTube projects have been growing in size ever since moving to 4K. The overall projects have gotten rather big, and I wanted to work on several projects without having to worry about storage running out. And the speeds of the SSDs are very fast. Excellent performance all around, and I'm extremely happy about it. I have plenty of room to work on maybe 6 to 10 projects without having to delete them, and that's plenty of room. Once I'm done with the projects, I usually export them and then I delete them. For gaming, this is where it gets a little tricky. I usually don't play very many games on my machine. I bought this machine purely for editing work. However, this machine does come equipped with an RX 580, which is usually found on mid-range PCs, and is somewhat equivalent to what is currently found on the new Xbox One X. So the GPU can definitely hold its own with some games. Expect modern first-person shooters to hold over 60 FPS at 1080p, and some at 1440p with some minor adjustments. However, do not expect any 4K gaming or 5K gaming for that matter without making major adjustments to the graphical settings. Anywho, the few games I do play on the machine are not very demanding at all. I play Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, and sometimes League of Legends, all which can be maxed out without much of a problem. But overall, expect a mid-range PC-like performance with a fantastic screen that helps upscale games. But don't buy this machine purely for gaming, because you can clearly max out your dollars with something far more dedicated. Here's some of the numbers for some of the games I currently play. However, this list isn't very extensive, as I don't play that many games, as I really wanted my review to focus on something else rather than gaming. But just know that you can definitely play modern games and get respectable frame rates. We can talk about performance numbers all day long, but how well does this machine handle 4K? Well, it handles it flawlessly. And that's without using optimized media. For those that don't know what optimized media is, well, it's used to convert a video file into a format that improves performance within Final Cut Pro 10. Usually, optimized media is used on older systems, but it can be used on modern ones to improve performance even further. Here's the thing. As a video editor, I only care about one thing, and that is how well does it perform while editing. That's the most important thing. Having a timeline that is absolutely smooth. And when that occurs, the software simply disappears as you simply work. Hardware performance becomes irrelevant because even the fastest computer cannot improve an already smooth experience. Sure, export times might improve, but at least while working within the timeline, the perceived performance is virtually identical. A smooth timeline at all times encourages creativity, and you will not be limited by the hardware, but rather on how creative you want to be. Here's some of the projects that I've worked on. These are the most recent ones, and really the only thing I need is more RAM, but that will be upgraded in due time. If you require an editing beast, look no further. You'll be rearranging pixels with virtually no obstruction. So how fast can I do certain editing tasks? Exporting my 15-minute Visio P series review while not allowing background rendering takes 11 minutes and 1 second to export. With background rendering on, it takes 9 minutes and 16 seconds. These export times are faster than real time, and that's just extraordinary. And keep in mind that all this footage is 4K. These are just a few tasks that the machine handles extraordinarily well. Also, I wanted to point out that under load, the fans are not very loud at all. And during normal usage, you'll basically never hear them. With the Mac Mini announcement, does this iMac still make sense? What would have happened had the new Mac Mini been available then? Well, the Mac Mini stacks up very well as a versatile machine that can be upgraded externally via a Thunderbolt 3, such as including an external GPU. However, for my usage, I needed an all-in-one ready to go out of the box. So despite the slight increase in CPU performance, I would probably still opt for the iMac, purely because I get everything I need in a single beautiful package, which includes a 5K display and a way more powerful GPU. Still, massive respect to the Mac Mini. The little beast can be configured to compete, if not beat it, in certain tasks. But it will require some money to do so, and all of the expansion will be external. For the negatives, well, there really isn't many, but they mostly have to do with the price. I had to pay extra to get a pure SSD. I was actively trying to avoid fusion drives, which are traditional mechanical drives with small SSDs for speed. And I think it's time that Apple retires all mechanical drives from all of their systems. So if you are considering this machine, avoid Fusion drives and try to opt for external storage as your main source. And also, I hope that Apple offers slightly better pricing if possible. Although considering what is being included with the price, it isn't too outrageous, all things considered. Another small negative is the slight throttling. This unit packs a lot of power in a small form factor, and we expect some heat. And from my tests, the CPU under massive load will run anywhere between 4.0 and 4.1 and even 3.9 gigahertz. And the base clock is supposed to be 4.2. So it is rather minor, but I thought it was important that I mention it. This only occurs when the CPU is at near 100% load. When exporting via Final Cut Pro 10, you will hit the base clock speeds and even exceed them. And that's because while rendering in Final Cut Pro 10, the CPU is not at 100% load. My first Mac ever was an iMac 20-inch with the first Intel dual-core processors. I bought it in 2006, and at the time I knew nothing about Macs. But I took a risk because I was sick of Windows XP. And ever since then, I've stayed with Mac OS, or as it was known at the time, Mac OS 10. So it all started with the iMac. And even though I love the Mac Mini, my first love was always the all-in-one beauty of the iMac. Everything bundled into a screen, which seemed like magic back then. Here's my Mac history so far. It all began with the iMac from 2006, followed by the MacBook from 2008, which was the first unibody notebook from Apple. Then a couple years later, I bought the Mac Mini from 2011. And I also bought a MacBook Air that same year, which was the 11-inch. And now I have an iMac from 2017 paired with a MacBook Pro, which is also from 2017 without the touch bar. As you can probably notice, I've always had a proper desktop paired with a notebook of some kind, which is a perfect segue to my next point, the perfect combo. So I currently have the base MacBook Pro without the touch bar, and I think this machine paired up with my iMac 5K is a perfect match. I've always wanted a powerful desktop paired with a good laptop for on-the-go performance. And I truly believe this combo is nearly perfect, because the base MacBook Pro provides excellent battery life along with the horsepower required to edit 4K video when necessary. And if the system can't handle something, then I quickly move to my iMac, which certainly can. By the way, I've already reviewed the MacBook Pro, so if you're interested, check it out. I will link it down below. To conclude, the iMac 5K is an excellent machine that comes with everything you could want out of an all-in-one. Excellent processor, well-balanced GPU, plenty of outputs, superb screen with excellent viewing angles. The iMac is truly the king of all-in-ones. This machine is incredible and definitely worth the price, especially for the screen alone. It will really spoil you. You will hate every other display. Text looks great on it, and being able to edit in 4K without much of an issue is incredible. And you can also do some gaming if you really want. This machine is really great. Despite the new Mac Mini announcement, I'm happy that I went with the iMac, because for myself, I'm returning to the computer that first made me fall in love with Macs. That classic white plastic computer that ran OS X Tiger. And that machine worked very well for several years. And now I've returned to the modern version of it. And I hope that this system will last for many years to come. And I'm sure Apple will provide an updated version at some point next year. And I think Apple will probably update the internals and not touch the design, because that will be problematic with their current iMac Pro lineup. So more than likely, the internals will probably be updated to a 6-core and provide a modest update to their current GPU and perhaps a bump to 128 gigs of RAM. Despite the machine having a potential update on the horizon, I still strongly recommend this machine as it can handle almost everything you throw at it, and it does so with an incredible display. I plan on keeping this machine until Final Cut Pro 10 doesn't edit well or until something breaks. This machine is awesome and I recommend it. Also, for those that might have been curious, on top of the iMac, I have a lamp from BenQ, and I really like it because it remains out of the way and is only there when I need it. I've reviewed the lamp, so if you're interested in checking that out, I will link it down below. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Seriously, you guys are awesome, so smash that like button, and as always, I'll catch you guys next time.